like it's really hard to say goodbye to family members, but I think it's also just like a beautiful reminder that like life is so like nothing's permanent, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like even though on some level we do have a lot of time here, we also don't. And
Mm-hmm.
like I think it's just a reminder to like treasure like those little moments. Yeah, so I'm just gonna preface this episode with maybe a little bit of like a trigger warning and maybe grab a box of tissues. I
Mm-hmm.
think I probably am gonna cry. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because I feel like I don't know if my experience is unique, but just having a brand new baby, like brand new life in this world, stepping into like a really new chapter in my life while simultaneously having um, several family members be like terminally ill. And like, I just feel like Arden's first year of life was like, it's like brand new life on one side. And then on the other side, it was like trying to mentally prepare to like lose both like my grandfather and my aunt who,
Wow.
yeah, I had got home from the hospital after Arden was born. And like 24 hours later, we got a phone call that my aunt is in the hospital and is like really, really sick. And we'd known she was sick, but like that was kind of like the first time we got a call that was like, no, like somebody needs to like come and like help her at the hospital because,
Wow. Because the end is coming.
yeah,
Wow.
you know, like she's like really sick kind of thing. And so my mom had gone to the hospital. It's my dad's sister, but my mom had gone to be with her because my dad was working out of town at the time.
Mm.
And yeah, it just like felt like so crazy that was like happening at the same time that I had this brand new baby, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so yeah, like cancer's a bitch. I don't know what to say. Like,
Amen.
and especially like once it hits those stages where like the oncologists have said like there's not really anything we can do to treat this. It's just like a matter of like keeping them comfortable. And then you're like, okay, well, like,
Wow.
you know, so like that whole year. So yeah, this would have been July. And then we almost lost her in August, and they called us to like say you have to like come say goodbye, blah blah blah. She pulled through, ended up living until March.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's stubborn. She is stubborn.
Wow.
But yeah, it was just like um,
Kind of a weird
it was just
duality,
such a
hey?
weird duality. Like the anticipation of losing somebody, I find is almost worse than actually losing them.
Yeah.
And like when it
Mm-hmm.
ends up being like such a drug out process, it's just like so emotionally exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And like you never know like when the last day is going to be, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like at the same time, so she was really ill, but my grandpa was also going through like kind of same thing. Like we had to like sell his house and he moved into like a long-term care facility and
Wow. And did you help like pack everything up and kind of like help
as
with this
much as you can
transition?
help with a 9-week-old baby.
Right.
And at the
Yes,
same
it's very
time, so like
fresh.
when he was moving, we were also moving. So I was kind of like torn between like packing my own shit and unpacking my stuff and like
Mm-hmm.
helping pack his stuff. And then just like going through a house of 30 years worth of belongings and
Mm-hmm.
like
Seeing a
finding,
whole life laid kind of a.
yeah. And like, I just remember feeling really emotional about that because like my grandma passed in 2020. And so that was their house, you know? And so like,
Wow.
I just felt like every time I was there, like I could still feel her, you know? And like like my grandpa didn't change anything after she passed. Like
Oh.
all of her jewelry was still on the dresser exactly where she left it,
Oh my goodness, that's heartbreaking.
you know? And
Yeah.
like, yeah, like he would still use the term like we when referencing like getting home.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be like, oh yeah, like when we get home later, da da da, even though she was
Mm-hmm.
gone, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so like I still very much felt like she was like part of the house, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so going through that was really hard, you know?
Did it feel like you were kind of torn in two different directions where you were trying to establish this new life and welcome and embrace a new
Yeah.
life at the same time trying to grieve and process the loss.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. And then it's also like you like see like kind of like the shifting of the generations happening too,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
Where it's
What
like
does that look like?
just like seeing my parents step into a role as like grandparents and seeing like that like I don't even know what it called like that
Like the mantle, like the weight of
well
like the
and
next
also just
step.
like those like grandmother qualities, you know,
Yeah,
like seeing
yeah.
like my mom like love Arden the same way that like Nanny loved me, you know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah.
um just like interesting, and then feeling myself like step into that mom role and be and then like realizing like, oh, I'm not the baby of the family anymore, like I'm kind of that middle generation,
Right.
you know. And then like kind of like just seeing like my parents are like, oh, like they're getting older and they're like retiring now, and
Oh, that's
like
hard. Yeah.
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 And then like yeah, just like having to say goodbye to that was, or like to my, like there was like the last day we had gone to visit my grandpa, and I didn't know at the time that this was going to be the last day either. But like we'd taken Arden and he was like playing in my grandpa's stuff, you know, like pulling stuff out, just like being a baby, you know. He doesn't understand that we're what's happening, you know. So he's just kind of like this like ray of like light and sunshine, like just like
Just so
playing.
innocent.
Yeah, just like playing. And like I just remember like turning my head to like look at my grandpa, and he's just like smiling at him. And like I don't know what it's like to be in my 80s and like trying to come to terms with death, but like he just like looked like he was like Arden's his only great grandchild, you know. Um yeah, I don't know. It was just like
Do you think it kind of sounds like it was a moment of almost self-reflection for your grandfather?
yeah.
Of just like, I mean, I wasn't there obviously, but I can kind of imagine it being like a sense of peace
Yeah.
of just seeing,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
your
kind of what
family kind of
it kind of like
growing.
looked like that, you know, and it was just
Yeah.
like he just like looked happy like
Oh.
watching Arden play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you feel like, you know, it's just so much to process and your life is still so engaged
Yeah.
in mothering and like your own transition that it's hard to allow that space to
Yeah.
grieve.
Yeah. It definitely is. And then also, like, I find like grieving when you have a brand new baby is a little bit weird too. Because you're like, I just want to be a puddle on the floor and like cry about this and like
Right.
not have to show up to the world today, but you don't really get that luxury because you have a baby, you know? Um,
How did the rest of your family handle losing family members but also welcoming
I
your new
honestly,
addition?
I think having Arden like made it a lot easier on everybody in a sense. You know, it's like he just
Something else.
yeah, like
Focus
he's
on.
just so joyful, right? Like it's really
Yeah.
hard to be sad when he's around because he's
Yeah.
just so like happy. And like he doesn't understand like what's going on. Like he doesn't really understand like, oh, like these people have passed and like everybody's sad, you know, like even like at oh, this might sound like really kind of morbid, but we ended up doing like a dual celebration of life because
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like they passed like within like my aunt passed in March and we were anticipating my grandpa was probably going to pass quite soon after, and like there was a handful of family that would have had to fly in from out of town, so we are like maybe we just fly everybody in once kind of thing. And like there was some other like logistical things that were the reason for that too, but like at the celebration of life, like Arden like grabs the little like speaker and he's like walking up to everybody being like dance, you know, like trying to like get everybody to like dance and stuff. And so like I just feel like he was kind of a ray of light through all of it, you know. It's like when the day was like stressful, like oh, like it's really yeah, it's just like hard to be sad when he's around, you know.
What a blessing, hey?
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean
a
like
little bit of
we had,
perspective.
I don't want to say we planned that, but like we were aware that like our families were getting older, and like Omari's grandparents are like in their like his grandpa's like 97 and his grandma's like 94. And so like they're older, and yeah, like I knew my aunt was sick. And yeah, we had kind of like both of us like really just wanted like our those family members to like meet our child.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's, I don't want to say we like jumped the gun on having a baby, but like that was kind of like, that was definitely on the mind.
Yeah.
You know, we were kind of like, maybe we should just do this now because like that was really important
sweet.
to both of us.
That's really sweet sentiment.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I don't know. It was just like this really like crazy moment, like at Arden's birthday party. Like we have a video, and it's on my personal Facebook or my personal Instagram account if you want to go find it. But it's a video of everybody singing Arden happy birthday. You can see like Arden and then Omari and then Omari's mom and Omari's like grandfather. And it's just like it was hard because like my grandpa died on Arden's birthday.
So very literally, like this passing of the torch.
Yeah, like I'm like, how did the universe write that one? Like, I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like we had Arden's whole birthday and whatever, and then we got a call at 10. Like my brother called at 10:30 and was like, "Grandpa is gone" or whatever. And I was just like, "Are you kidding me? Like, why today?"
Yeah.
But on the same note, it kind of felt like a sense of completion because like my aunt got sick like the day after Arden was born, and like that whole like it was a year to the day, you know.
That's crazy.
Weird, right?
Very.
But yeah, so we like got that phone call and then we're like laying in bed watching this video of like everybody sing to Arden and like again like similar to like watching my grandfather watch Arden like play in the drawer. It's like you can see like Omari's granddad's like sitting there and like everybody's like singing Arden happy birthday. And like Arden's the youngest of his granddad's great grandchildren or whatever. And like and the only great grandchild that like lives in the same proximity.
Mm-hmm.
Like the rest of them are in England.
Wow.
But like we both just kind of had this moment of like, what a crazy life, you know. Like his granddad's like just was born in Barbados and then moved 5 children to England, had a 6th child in England, and then ended up moving to Canada in his 70s with his grandmother.
Wow.
And then they like helped raise Omari and his siblings, and like his granddad drove Omari to like all of his like football games and to kindergarten, and like was very involved in their upbringing. And so like it was just this really beautiful moment of like having like 4 generations there to like sing Arden happy birthday. It was like,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, so like on the same note, like it's really hard to say goodbye to family members, but I think it's also just like a beautiful reminder that like life is so like nothing's permanent, you know? And like even though on some level we do have a lot of time here, we also don't. And like I think it's just a reminder to like treasure like those little moments.
Amen.
And be like, yeah, like we have 4 generations here singing Arden happy birthday. Like not everybody gets that.
No.
You know? And like I didn't get that. For like on my side, like my grandparents didn't get to sing Arden happy birthday on his first birthday. Like I'm grateful my grandpa got to meet him. And like we still have like those beautiful moments too, but yeah, I just like it was a crazy year, dude.
It really does bring life a bit into perspective.
Yeah.
Of what's really important.
Yeah.
You know, like we can talk about like hobbies and things like that.
Yeah. Like I think it just like sobers you to the moment too, you know? And I also feel like like after he passed away, like the next day was Canada Day, and I just like took Arden to Bonas Park. And we like Arden's like throwing rocks in the river and like riding the little like scooter around he got for his birthday. And like
precious.
You know?
Yeah.
And so like I just feel like it like gives the little moments more color.
For sure. Yeah, some purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, realizing that nothing is permanent, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had your family experienced loss before that?
Yeah, like yeah. But like when my grandma passed away in 2020, we did.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, just very different. Like the timing of it was just very surreal.
Yeah, the timing of it was a little bit surreal. And like when my grandma passed, I found like I don't know, we had a family dinner and she complained her stomach hurt, and then she was gone 2 weeks later. Like it wasn't like a big drawn out thing. It was more like it was quicker, which is hard in its own sense. but like it doesn't really give you like having a whole year worth of anticipating like, oh, like this might be at the end, you know, like I just feel like the contrast was different. Yeah. And then in a way too, it's like when they pass, you almost like relive her passing,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And then like having to empty out their house was kind of like saying goodbye to her all over again, you know? And like, I don't know too, like there's just like, speaking of beautiful moments, so like my family, like we had like told this story at her like funeral service about like how when dragonflies are in like their infancy that they like live in the water, and then once they like leave the water they become a dragonfly. But like when they're in the water, they don't know that after they leave they become a dragonfly. They just think that they leave and never come back.
Oh,
so it's kind of like a metaphor for like life and death kind of thing. And so after her funeral, we always like associated dragonflies with like, oh, like Nanny's here, you know? And so when I got pregnant with Art, sorry, sidetrack. Never mind. I'll finish this story. I'll go back to the other one. So yeah, so after she passed, like we'd see like dragonflies and be like, oh, like Nanny's here or whatever. And they'd show up at weird times. Like there was like the first Thanksgiving after she had passed, there like a dragonfly flew up and like landed on the deck in the middle of October.
No way.
Like when do you see dragonflies in October? And like a big one too. It wasn't like a little one. Yeah, and then so the day I went into labor, we like check into the hospital room and there's a dragonfly flying in the window.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Like you can't write that.
No.
Oh, anyways.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
she was nearby.
She was nearby. And then also like when I got pregnant, like the week I got pregnant, so my parents kept a bunch of my brother's old like Fisher-Price toys in the basement.
Yeah, very sweet.
And some of them make noise. But had not made noise for like at least a good 10 years.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like I hadn't even told anybody I was pregnant yet. My dad's in the basement one day and this toy starts singing. Like nobody was near the bucket, nothing. The toy just starts like singing randomly. And my dad's like, what? And then and then this toy like stops and then like a few minutes later it starts like singing again. My dad's like, my mom's here. Like this is crazy. And so and then I like ended up telling them like 2 days later I was pregnant with Arden.
Oh my god.
Like isn't that crazy? Like these toys have like I'm shocked the batteries even worked in these things still because like they hadn't been used for 10 years and they didn't prior to this go off randomly.
That's wild. So your dad just made that connection right away. He was like, that makes total sense.
Like, yeah. And then like my whole pregnancy, every like 4 days, these toys would just like go off randomly.
No way.
And then even now, like now it's a joke. Yeah. That like, cause they still do that, right? Arden plays with them now though. Oh. So like we changed all the batteries out and whatever. But like sometimes they'll be like in the living room and he'll have like stopped playing with them. Everybody's in the kitchen and all of a sudden the thing just starts like singing. You're like, okay, hi Daddy. But like, I don't know. I believe in that stuff. I don't know if everybody else does or not, but it brings me some like peace and joy to like think those things. Yeah. You know?
And I think at the end of the day, like that's important too, is regardless of what you believe, as long as it's giving you a sense of peace and purpose and like I guess that's basically it. Peace and purpose is really what we need in this life, right? Yeah. Especially when we're talking about the finality of death. A lot of times it can be really just very heavy. Yeah. You know, and you feel like, where is this all going? Yeah. But when you can think about like the circle of life and the beauty that's in that and feeling maybe that like that feeling that your families are there. Yeah. And watching over like this continual circle. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. And I think too, just like, like bringing in some of like the old traditions we used to do, like baking like the same cookie recipe that Nanny used to do every Christmas. And like, I don't know, moving into like holiday season without them too feels a little weird because like,
you're just missing a seat at the table a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like the table's totally changed though. Like it's not even the same table anymore. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it just feels different because there's more than one seat missing at the table this year, whereas like last year there was still only one seat missing.
Right.
You know, like it just feels like a very different dynamic now that, yeah. And I mean, not like, it's just a different dynamic. It's not like better or worse. It's just like different.
Mm-hmm. So what would you tell other families or mothers in specific who are kind of going through a bit of like a grief family process?
I think just like allow yourself, like be gentle with yourself with it. Like allow yourself to cry when you need to cry. And like, I think grief can come up in like such strange ways, you know, and I think it changes. And I think for me anyways, like the initial shock after somebody passes, it's like you don't even really realize that they're gone right away. It's just kind of like feels like you haven't seen them in a while. But then like as the months go on, it's like, oh, like I should call that person. And you're like, oh, right, like they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
You know, or like even like the home my grandpa was in was like up the road from my parents' house. So like sometimes if I like take a certain route to their house, I'll be like I'll see the place and I'm like, oh, I should stop and see grandpa. And then it's like, oh, he's not there now. You know?
Yeah.
And so I think just like being gentle with yourself in the process. Like I think for me there was a lot of anger that came up too at some point. You know, like I think like the stages of grief, it's like you have like denial and then anger and then sadness and then like I forget the last two, but it's kind of like you start like coming to terms with it and then you like find solace on the other side. Right. But like, yeah, I think just like being patient with yourself as you like go through those different like chapters of grief, and like it's like crazy how like sometimes something will come out of left field and you'll be like a puddle on the floor. Yeah, like a song will come on the radio and like
well, especially when memories are triggered in so many different ways.
Yeah, right? Or like Facebook will send you a memory from like 6 years ago and you're like, oh yeah, Thanksgiving dinner when everybody was here and healthy and alive. Oh, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Or like somebody will like crack a joke and it'll be like, oh, you know? Or like Arden will do something and you'll be like we have like my grandpa's we had this like rocking chair that was my grandpa's rocking chair from when he was a little boy, and Arden loves playing in it.
Oh, that's sweet.
So like every time Arden does that, it's kind of like, oh, like I really miss grandpa, but also this is really cute and sweet, you know? Yeah. And then like I just think allowing yourself the space to like go through the emotions of that, and then also therapy, because I find too, like sometimes when people pass away, like sometimes you have to like reflect on the relationship you had with them, and like as much as like like I think as much as you like love family members, not always is your relationship a healthy one all the time. Great, you know, like I think like sometimes like for me, like my relationship with my aunt, like I loved her a lot, but like do I wish it could have been a deeper relationship? Like yeah, and I feel like I always wanted that with her while she was here. Like I wanted like her to be somebody that like I could like go to when I needed something, and like sometimes I felt that way and sometimes I didn't. And so like when she passed, it was like I had to go through that kind of thing, you know? And so like I don't always think the grief is sadness. Sometimes I think the grief can be like frustration that you didn't get the relationship that you wanted to have with that person, you know? And then are no longer going to have the opportunity to do so because they're not here anymore, you know? Makes sense. Or like going through like stuff that was left unsaid. And so like, yeah, I just feel like I think grief can be so different for each person. And I think like your grief process can be so different depending on who it is that's passed in your life, you know? Yeah, like I don't always think it looks like I'm so sad this person is gone. Like I think it can be a little more complicated than that sometimes.
Totally. Well, it's interesting too because you have the experience of having Arden around the same time. And so I'm curious if having those feelings of, you know, like maybe there's some things in my relationship with Arden that I want to do differently now that I've experienced losing somebody and I've had this kind of relationship. Do you feel like that's relevant at all? I mean, the relationship is so different because you're mother and son. And
yeah, 100%. I think there's definitely stuff I want to like bring to the relationship, like from the relationship I had with my grandma specifically, you know, like
what?
I don't know. She was just fun. Like she always just like made sure we were like playing with something or like
that's so
outside.
Great. Brought some joy to your life a little bit.
Yeah, and like she would always like tell me these like stories that she made up. She called them like gopher stories or whatever.
Cute.
And so like so my aunt had passed away the day before my birthday. But for my birthday, so she passes on the 13th. I ended up seeing my family, I think, on like the 14th, which is my birthday. And my mom hands me a gift from my aunt. And it's this like gopher story that my grandma always used to tell me that she found in the basement while she was cleaning out their house. And so she'd framed it and ordered me a little like gopher stuffed animal for my birthday. You know, and so like I think the stuff I'd like to carry like from my relationship with my aunt into the relationship I have with Arden is like nobody's birthday was ever forgotten. You know, like even like like Arden's birthday is June 30th and she passed in March. And we go to like so we go to my uncle's house on July 1st after Grandpa died the night before. Like my uncle hands me a birthday gift for Arden from my auntie who passed like 3 or 4 months back. Like
wow.
Like, how did you have time to go to Costco and buy pajamas when you were dying on your deathbed with cancer?
That's
you know,
crazy.
I'm like, so like right till after the end.
Yeah.
She's like,
she's
like still giving us birthday gifts from the grave.
That's really sweet.
You know, so as like much as like on some levels I like wish my relationship was different with her and that she could have like maybe like seen me for who I was a little bit more than I felt like she did. Like she was always thinking about us in her own way, you know. And so like I'll never miss Arden's birthday. you know.
You realize the impact that your family members have had on you.
Yeah. Even if like our relationship wasn't always like I don't know, perfect all the time, but nobody's relationships are perfect all the time.
No, not at all. It really is about what we take away from them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The impact that we have on other people.
Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, just like if you're going through a lot of emotions and you talk to a therapist, that was really helpful for me.
Good call. Talk to a professional. We're not the professionals, but we are here to listen. Yeah. Well, thank you again for being vulnerable and I'm sorry for your loss.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me do this episode because I was just like, I think it's valuable to like share those experiences that like sometimes feel so like weird. You know?
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes you just can't prepare for something like this, and so it's helpful to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because there's undoubtedly people out there who are experiencing something similar.
Yeah.
And so thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Love you guys. If you're going through anything similar, please reach out. Find your people that will support you. And you are loved. Your family is loved. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.